Warning, this video contains graphic scenes, images, fake blood and some adult dialogue that some viewers may find distressing. Viewer discretion is advised. Hey everyone and welcome to my channel. My name's Chloe and this is my first ever YouTube video. It's kind of crazy because I never in a million years thought I'd be doing a YouTube video. Honestly, it's kind of surreal to me, but I just thought, look, you know what, just push yourself out of your comfort zone and try something new. You'll never know until you try. And today I just wanted to talk about a case that I'm sure many of you already have heard of. It's the Chris Watts case, and I just wanted to sit down and talk a little bit about that. And just while I'm talking about the case, I'm just going to be doing a little bit of makeup. I thought today I will try an SFX Christmassy makeup look just to keep myself busy. So I'm not rambling on like what I'm doing now. I apologise. So, and also just before we get into the video, I just want to throw a little disclaimer out there. I mean absolutely no harm or disrespect to anybody involved in this case whatsoever. All the information that I'm going to say in this video has already been put out to the public. So I got my information from the Netflix documentary American Murder, Family Next Door, and also from many news outlets that have put up information about the case over the years as well. So that's where I'm getting my information from. So everything is already out in the public and I'm just going to talk about it, as I said, and just do a bit of makeup just to keep myself busy. So I really hope you enjoy, and yeah, let's get into it. So Christopher Lee Watts, son of Ronnie Watts and Cindy Watts, born May 16, 1985 in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And then Shanann Watts, formerly Ruschek, daughter of Frank Ruschek and Sandra Ruschek, was born January 10, 1984 in Clifton, New Jersey, USA. So in 2010, Shanann actually ends up moving to North Carolina, and this is where her and Chris would eventually meet. Now Shanann was recently divorced when she moved to North Carolina before she met Chris, and it was said to be a very messy sort of divorce and took a lot out of Shanann. She was always quite a confident girl, and she lost all confidence in herself and just wasn't herself. So she decides to sort of, she wants to leave her old life behind and just go and start a fresh new life and see, what can come of it. So in 2010 is when Chris and Shanann ends up actually meeting, with Chris actually sending Shanann a Facebook friend request. Now, Shanann thought, it's just another sort of Facebook friend request. I'll never meet him, just accept it. It's nothing is ever going to come of it. But little did she know that her and Chris would actually end up meeting and hitting things off. Basically, it was said to get very serious pretty quick with them. They dated for 2 years and then ended up actually getting married November 3rd, 2012 in Mecklenburg County. And the following year then their first daughter, Bella Marie Watts, was born. So after sort of Bella being born and after they getting married, they decided to move to Frederick, Colorado. And now it was said that they ended up falling in love with the place out there. After multiple visits, they were there and back a few times, and they really just fell in love with the place. The big back garden, the lovely neighbourhood, everything like that. It seemed like a perfect sort of neighbourhood to raise a family. So they just fell in love with the place and decided, hey, this is where we're going to start our new life. So in 2015, Chris actually ends up getting a job in Anadarko Petroleum as an operator, while Shanann ended up working as an independent representative for a marketing company called Lavelle. Now it was said that sort of Chris's job was very well paying. It looked after him basically, so he was able to provide for his family, and life was good. To everyone on the outside, it seemed like it was a match made in heaven. They were starting to grow their little family. It just seemed like life was good, and it didn't look like anything was wrong to anyone on the outside. Like if you saw on the Netflix documentary, you'd see all their home movies and you wouldn't know any different. You'd think, it was just a match made in heaven, and it was just the perfect family. So it's just so sad when you know now what incidents come to happen. You know the outcome of what happened to Shanann, Celeste and Bella Watts, and it's absolutely just heartbreaking. So in 2015, that same year, is when their second baby girl, Celeste Catherine Watts, was born, aka Cece Watts. So August 10th, 2018, Shanann and her close friend and work colleague, Nicole Atkins, actually leave for a business trip to Arizona for the weekend. So I'm really sorry if I didn't pronounce Nicole's second name right. You'll come to know by just the rest of this video, and the more you see me, that I'm not very good with names or speaking words. Actually, I can see a word like in front of me, I know what it says, but do you think I can get it out? No. So I'm really sorry and I apologize. It's just, I don't think there's any change in me at this point, so I think we're just all going to have to deal with it and just move past it. But I just want to say I'm very sorry if I get any names wrong in this video. So on August 13, 2018 is when Nicole actually dropped Shanann off at her home after the two returned from their business trip in Arizona. Now, on the Netflix documentary, you can see Shanann walking into her home and you can see Nicole like pulling out of the driveway. So like the Shanann and Chris had like cameras on their house and that showed her walking into the home. But sadly this is the last time sort of anyone would see Shanann alive. So Nicole dropped Shanann off at the home roughly around 2 a.m. that morning, and it wasn't around till later that same morning, roughly around 9 a.m. that the flag was sort of raised when Nicole tried to contact Shanann and there was no answer. So Shanann was due actually at a doctor's appointment roughly around 9 a.m. I believe. Nicole tried to get in contact with Shanann and there was just no answer, and it was just very alarming to Nicole because she knew Shanann was supposed to be in a doctor's appointment. Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant at the time with their unborn son, Nico Watts. So Nicole just kept ringing and just could not get through to Shanann. No answer, and hadn't heard anything from her. So after numerous times of Nicole actually ringing Shanann and no answer, Nicole sent Shanann a text saying that she was going to come to her house just to check in on her to see if she was okay because she was worried. This was roughly around 11:46 a.m. So sometime later, Nicole arrived at Shanann and Chris's house and still was trying to ring her and trying to like ring the doorbell, and there was just no answer. Shanann just wasn't answering her phone and she wasn't answering the door. But her car was still in the driveway, so Nicole thought, oh well, that's a bit odd, because she was supposed to be at a doctor's appointment that morning and hadn't heard, like she hadn't let Nicole know how she got on. So Nicole was just like worried, like anybody would. So she done the right thing and decided to ring the police, and she voiced her concern over like Shanann not answering her phone and that she was after being at the house and there was still no answer, but her car was in the driveway. So police arrived then shortly after, and they Nicole, and I don't know who this gentleman was. I probably completely missed it, and if I did, I apologize. So I'm just going to call him like a family friend. So he was also there. So Nicole and this gentleman greeted the police officer, and the police officer went up to the door and was sort of knocking on the door and just calling out to Shanann, but there was still no answer. They were asking police could they get into the house, and as police said, you can't really go into the house without someone's permission, like Chris's permission or Shanann's permission, because there wasn't any evidence saying otherwise. All that the police knew at this time was that Shanann just wasn't answering her phone and no one had heard from her since 2 a.m. that morning. So Nicole was actually on the phone to Shanann's mother, Sandra, while the police were there. And pretty much the whole way throughout when the police were there, Nicole was on the phone to Sandra. And you can sort of hear Sandra saying that she gives permission for them to walk in because it's her daughter's house. But before they could sort of do anything like that, Chris shows up. So from the minute that he arrives, you can see that his behaviour is just odd. He sort of gets out of his truck and he just jogs up his driveway, basically. And he goes over to the police officer and shakes his hand. Now there's nothing abnormal about shaking a policeman's hand, but it was just the way he didn't seem phased at all that no one had seen his wife. Like, he just, as I said, jogged up the driveway. Like, that's not normal behaviour. So Chris lets everyone into the house, so like the policeman, Nicole, and the gentleman that was with Nicole. So they just start searching around the house for any signs of Shanann, and you can hear it being said to check upstairs to see if she's unconscious. Because a few years prior to that, Shanann had been in a bad car accident and had suffered seizures ever since. But Chris said that she hadn't had a seizure in a while. But just to be safe, they checked upstairs anyway, just to make sure that she, like, if she was there, that she was okay. They were basically just checking around the house to see if there was any information on where she could be. And that's when you can hear Chris go upstairs, and you can hear him say, he goes into the girls' bedrooms and he says that their blankies are gone and that they always sleep with their blankies and everything. And that's obviously a bit alarming that the kids are gone too. Like, there is no sign of the kids. Their blankies, their favourite blankies are gone. Do you know? So they just started to look around the house a little bit more, and that's when they found some of Shanann's personal belongings that you think that if it was just that she was running errands or went to a close family friend's house, that she would have brought with her. So her mobile phone was found. Now, her phone was actually turned off when it was found. Also, her wedding ring was found in the bedroom on the bedside locker. And then downstairs, Nicole found her purse. So her purse had her medication in it, which Shanann couldn't really go without because unfortunately she had lupus disease. So she needed to be taking her medication. And it was just a bit alarming that, you know, her purse was still there with her medication in it. And you can see like how distraught Nicole is when she realises that her medication is still in the purse. So Nicole ends up filling in the police officer on how Shanann's behaviour was over the weekend in Arizona on the work business trip. And Nicole said that Shanann just wasn't being herself. You know, she wasn't eating right, she wasn't drinking right, and she just wasn't acting herself. She just seemed very sort of distraught and disconnected. So when Chris turned on Shanann's phone, a few messages actually came through. Now, a few of them were from Shanann's friends, just saying to let them know that she's okay. And the other few that came through were actually from Chris himself. Now, the first message was around 7:40 a.m. that Chris sent to Shanann's phone. Now, Chris told the police officer that he had went to work roughly around 5:15 to 5:30 a.m. that morning. So the message came through at about 7:40 a.m. and it read, quote, "If you take the kids somewhere, please let me know where they're at." And then a second message came in from Chris to Shanann's phone at 12 p.m. that said, quote, "Can you call me please?" And then two other messages came in from Chris on Shanann's phone at 1:19 p.m. that said, quote, "I'm on my way home, please be there." And then the second one said, quote, "Where are you?" So Chris just seemed like a worried husband, a typical worried husband, you know, just wondering where his wife is, and just he was participating with police, like, you know, every question that they're asking he was answering. And but you can just see that he's very sort of uneasy in the videos, like he's rocking back and forth. He actually looks just a bit clammy, like, you know, like sweaty and everything. But he was answering the questions, like, you know, he wasn't acting like, he wasn't being aggressive or anything like that. He was just cooperating, and he was answering every question that he was being asked. So police just start looking around, and the next door neighbour actually comes forward and says that he has CCTV footage that the police are welcome to. They can look through just to see if there's any information on there that might show, you know, Shanann, Bella and Celeste like leaving, getting into a car, you know, anything at all, any information at all, it would show. So police like went into the next door neighbour's home. Now, there wasn't anything abnormal on the CCTV footage. It only showed Chris's truck pulled up to the garage. Now, Chris told police that he unloaded his truck every time after work. And police were like, yeah, okay, like, you know, nothing odd about that. And so, yeah, there wasn't anything like that seemed anything suspicious or anything on the CCTV footage. So, when Chris leaves, the next door neighbour starts telling police some juicy information that basically Chris never, ever unloads his truck after work. Ever. He usually parks his truck out on the street in front of the neighbour's CCTV footage, because apparently he had problems with people trying to break into his truck. So he used to just park his truck in sight of the cameras. So Chris had pulled his truck up to the garage door, so you couldn't see what he was doing. You could see him walking back and forth, but you couldn't see what he was doing, like if he had anything in his hands or anything like that. So when Chris leaves the neighbour's home, the neighbour actually turns around and says to police, quote, "He's not acting right at all." So police were just like, "What, is he not?" And yeah, the neighbour was like, "No, he's not acting right at all. Like, he's never the one to be like out there. He'd sort of keep to himself. He'd never talk to anybody. Really, he'd just be more so to himself, and that was it." So the neighbour just found it very odd that he was over here talking like there was no tomorrow to the police, to the neighbours. He was shaking everybody's hand. You know, he just wasn't the type to be like outgoing. He just keep to himself, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like, just keeping to yourself and liking your own company. But it was just that it wasn't normal behaviour for him to be over there so talkative and like just being so social when he never is like that. So the neighbour was pretty suspicious of Chris from the very start, it seemed. Like, he didn't buy what he was saying. He said that he was acting strange and just wasn't being himself. So the neighbour knew that there was something up. And again, I'm going to bring it back to the Netflix documentary, because it's just a little side note. When I was watching the Netflix documentary, you can see Chris over in the neighbour's home. So Chris doesn't look like he's at ease at all. Like, he's rocking back and forth. He's just very sort of fidgety, like he can't stay still, and he still looks like he's sort of sweating. So you can see on the neighbour's TV that like an ad break or like a commercial came up on the TV, and it showed like what seemed to be a little fetus, like a little baby fetus. So you can sort of see Chris like looking off to the side at the TV, and that's when he decides to tell police that his wife is 15 weeks pregnant. Like, I know everyone gets in a state of blind panic and just forgets something, like, and you think, how can I actually forget that when it's so important? But this was different. He wasn't in a blind panic. He wasn't anxious. He didn't seem like he was stressed out in the slightest. He just seemed to be normal. So August 14th, 2018, Shanann, Bella and Celeste Watts are now 2 days missing. Chris rings up the police station with descriptions of his wife and 2 daughters. And, you know, just for police to be able to do up flyers to, you know, give out to the neighbours and just post them anywhere that they can. Just in a bid to try jog somebody's memory. Like, somebody out there must have seen Shanann, Celeste and Bella Watts if she left. So they were trying to find any information out at all. Like, if anybody had seen Shanann, Bella and Celeste, then surely someone had come forward. So that same day then, Chris was actually interviewed by like a TV media crew, and again his behaviour was just very, very, very odd. Like, he's just not showing any sort of emotion at all. Like, it's just very strange. If you watch the interview, you'll know what I mean. He's just, again, just like this with his arms, like sort of rocking back and forth like that. Just, I don't know, like no emotion. He's just, ugh. So Chris was asked a few questions by this reporter. One of the questions was, do you think Shanann would just take off? And Chris just like, he was just, you know, again, just not acting, like not showing any emotion, and he just replied with, quote, "I mean, right now I don't want to just like throw anything out there. Like, I hope that she is somewhere safe right now with the kids. But I mean, could she have just taken off? I don't know. If somebody has her and they're not safe, I want them back now." Saying this, 2 reporters all the while showing no emotion. He was then asked, did you and Shanann have some sort of argument? And she left. And he said that they didn't have an argument, they had an emotional conversation. An emotional conversation. And that he was just going to leave it at that. He was then seen smirking after telling reporters that him and Shanann were after having an emotional conversation and he was going to leave it there. He then started to smirk while saying, quote, "I just want them back." That is not normal behaviour. Like, seriously. So while this interview is going on outside with Chris and the media, police actually bring in sniffer dogs into the home. So sniffer dogs can also sense the scent of death in an apartment, in a house, in a car, anywhere. So they were just bringing the sniffer dog in just to have a sniff around to see if the dog could pick up on anything that the police may have missed. You can see in the Netflix documentary that the lady is walking around with the sniffer dog, and you can actually hear her say, quote, "It almost seems that this place is a little bit too immaculate to be normal." So they knew that it wasn't right. Like, no one's house is that clean that it looks like it hasn't been lived in. So they knew, like themselves, that it wasn't right, that there was something dodgy going on. You can then hear another lady responding in the background saying, quote, "It's amazingly clean." So, like, they knew themselves that it was a bit too clean to be normal. Like, maybe someone had, tried to get rid of something that shouldn't have been there. So that same day then, August 14th, 2018, Chris was actually brought down to the police station. So Chris is just talking to the police officer about the emotional conversation that him and Shanann had before Shanann went missing. And the policeman is just there listening. He's just letting Chris talk. And Chris went on to just say that the conversation they had was to do with how he was feeling and how that there was no spark there anymore between them, and just that they were sort of like drifting apart almost. So Chris was telling the police officer all of this, and then the police officer is heard saying to Chris, "Oh, it must have been like really emotional for you too, that conversation." And Chris says, quote, "Oh yeah, I was bawling my eyes out." So police are heard saying to Chris, walk us through what happened that night to where we are now that Shanann and the girls are gone. And Chris is heard saying that he has thought, oh, maybe it was him that caused it because of the emotional conversation he had with Shanann, that he told her that he didn't love her anymore, and that maybe she felt like she needed to leave because there was no point in staying in a relationship if Chris didn't love her anymore. So he's trying to portray all of this on poor Shanann. Like, he's trying to make her out to be the one who's up and left. So 7 weeks prior to the incidents that had occurred, on the 26th of June, Shanann and Chris just weren't getting along. They weren't seeing eye to eye really. Chris wasn't being as affectionate and loving towards Shanann as he once was. So I think Shanann just thought, you know what, I'm just going to fly back to North Carolina to spend some time with my family and friends and just see if a little bit of distance may do the trick. Now Chris eventually ends up coming out 5 weeks later, on the 31st of July. He ends up joining Shanann and the two girls out there for a week, and then they end up flying back together on the same flight. So Shanann ends up bringing Bella and Celeste to see Chris's parents. Now it's said that Chris's parents and Shanann really didn't see eye to eye. Chris even said himself that his mother and sister did not like Shanann because they felt like she was taking Chris away from them. So Nicole, Shanann's friend and work colleague, actually told police that Chris's parents did not like Shanann because she was too bossy, but in a good way. Like, she was always like trying to push Chris to do the best things for him and their family, like to push him to do the best that he could possibly do. So she was being a good supportive wife and just wanted the best for her husband and her family. So Shanann, as I said, Shanann ends up bringing the girls to see Chris's parents, but it didn't last too long before an argument broke out. The argument broke out because Chris's mother, Cindy, gave Celeste, aka Cece, ice cream that she was allergic to. Now, Cece was said to have a food allergy, and again, I'll bring it back to the Netflix documentary. In the Netflix documentary, you can hear Shanann say that Cece is allergic to everything that they like. So like walnut cookies and pistachio cookies and everything like that. So Cindy gave Celeste ice cream that apparently had everything in it that Celeste was allergic to. So that's how the argument breaks out. Shanann ends up getting on to Cindy about giving Celeste the ice cream. So now Cindy claims that she did not know of Cece's allergy, and obviously she wouldn't have gave her the ice cream if she thought it had put her in harm's way. But that's how the argument broke out, and it resulted in Cindy kicking Shanann out of the house apparently. And Shanann ends up texting Chris to tell him what had happened. So Chris ends up saying that, you know, he'll sort it out, he'll talk to his parents, and that was it. Now, also while they were there, Celeste celebrated her 3rd birthday party. Shanann threw a little party which Chris's parents did not show up to. They didn't go to. It must have been because of the argument, but I'm not going to assume because I don't know for definite. But they weren't at the party. That's that. They weren't there. So I'm just going to throw some glitter on my eyes and some lashes off camera. You know yourself, when you're trying to put lashes on, it takes severe concentration. So I'm going to do that and then I'll be right back. Hey guys, so I'm back now, lashes on. So let's continue on with the video then. So Shanann started to grow more and more concerned in regards to her relationship, because she could never sort of get through to Chris. Like, he'd never sort of answer. And when he did, it'd only be that he'd be on the phone with her for a few minutes and then he'd let her go to go work out. Or sometimes he'd even start working out on the phone when he was talking to her, which is just so disrespectful in itself. But so Chris was about 245 pounds, and it said that he sort of dropped the weight pretty quick, and he dropped the weight down to about roughly 180 to 185 pounds. And this sort of sparked something with police. They were like, you know, that's a lot of weight to lose so quick. And they were questioning him, was it a girl? Because, you know, maybe a girl could have brought on this sudden change. You know, if he had someone else new to impress, maybe that's the reason for the weight loss, like, so drastically. So he denied this, obviously. He said, when he was asked by police, was it a girl? He said no, that he loved his wife and that he'd never cheat on his wife. So Agent Lee from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation actually ends up ringing Chris's supervisor at the time, a man named Luke Appel. Now, I'm really sorry if I haven't pronounced his name right. I think I have, but if I haven't, as I said, I mean no harm by it. As I said earlier on in the video, I'm just terrible with names, I'm terrible with words, I'm just terrible with speaking in general. So Agent Lee asks Luke, does he have any concerns in regard to Chris? To which he says, absolutely not, like no concerns. The only concern that I have is of what Chris is going through right now. And he was also asked, did Chris have a girlfriend to his knowledge? To which he also said no. So like he said that he had no concerns about Chris, like that Chris and other work colleagues were out on site serving 19 that morning pretty much all day, working away. So no concerns, no nothing. So yeah, so that was it with Luke. So August 15, 2018, Chris was actually asked to do a polygraph test, to which he agreed to. So like his dumb ass thought he was going to pass the polygraph test. Okay then, so the polygrapher lady brought Chris into a room, and polygrapher actually is a word, I did look it up, I had to look it up. So they brought him into the room and they set him up to the machine and they began to do the polygraph test. Now straight away you can see that sort of Chris is uneasy, like he's, his breathing is all over the place. Like the lady actually has to tell him to control his breathing, that the spikes are just all over the place. So he was just trying to pass off that he was nervous and just like there was too much emotions there and just stuff like that. Yeah, so he was sort of asked questions like, are you lying about the last time you saw Shanann and the kids? And to which he says no. And he was also asked, did you have anything to do with the disappearance of Shanann, Celeste and Bella? To which he also said no. Now, there was a few other questions, but he was just all over the place. Like, his breathing, everything was just everywhere. Like, you could tell he was lying. So I'd say the lady knew that he'd failed even before she looked at the screen, just the way he was carrying on. But she left and came back in with a police officer, and they both talked to Chris. And the lady told Chris that he knew that he didn't pass. Like, he had to have known that he didn't pass, like the way he was going on. And Chris, kept saying, no, I'm innocent, I haven't done anything, I'd never do anything to my family, and just basically saying that he was not involved. So they were trying to sort of get a confession out of him, saying, look, Chris, give it up. We know that you're lying. Just, you want to bring your family home. So he was obviously going to fail the polygraph test because he just wasn't being truthful. He was lying through his teeth, and I think everybody knew. I think the polygraph lady and Chris both knew how things were going to end. So guess who comes forward? A woman by the name of Nicole Kissinger. Now, again, I'm very sorry if I have not pronounced her name right, but she came forward without Chris knowing or without any media or anyone knowing. So she came in to talk to police just herself. So she told police that her and Chris had a romantic relationship together and had met around June 2018, and that they were seeing each other, and they had been seeing each other for some time. So Nicole did say that Chris told her that he had 2 daughters, so she knew of Bella and Celeste. But what he also told her was that he was in the middle of a separation from his wife Shanann, and also failed to mention to Nicole that Shanann was 15 weeks pregnant with their 3rd baby. So he's still trying to portray his innocence by saying, I didn't do anything, I told the truth. It was because there was too much emotions there that he failed the polygraph test. So then, like, the polygrapher lady and the police officer is just like talking to Chris. They're trying to get a confession out of him, because at this stage everybody knows he's lying about something. They don't know what, but they know he's lying because he failed the polygraph test. So they're just like talking to him, trying to get something out of him, some information, any information at all, and he just like blurts out that he's had an affair. But they already knew this because obviously they were already after talking to Nicole, kissing her. So they knew that he was after having an affair. But he confirmed it. So Chris just blurts out and asks, can he talk to his dad? And the polygrapher lady and the police officer agree. They're like, yeah, he can come in. Tell him what you won't tell us, basically. So the dad comes in, and Chris is talking to him, and the dad asks, is there something that, like, you want to let me know what's going on? Like, tell me what's going on. And Chris says that he failed the polygraph test. It was because there was too much emotion. Yeah. So the dad turns around and asks Chris, is there anything else he wants to get off his chest? Like, is there anything else he wants to talk to him about? And that's when Chris turns around and says, quote, I don't want to protect her anymore. So he's trying to imply that it was Shanann that actually had done something. So the dad asks Chris, did Shanann do anything to the kids? And that's when Chris turns around and says to his dad, quote, yeah, and then I had to kill her. Shanann didn't do anything, and he's trying to put the blame on Shanann. He went on to tell his dad that it was actually Shanann who had smothered Bella age 4 and Celeste age 3, and they were, quote, blue. So then Chris told his dad that, quote, he freaked out and done the same thing to her. So the polygrapher lady and the policeman comes back into the room, and Ronnie Watts, Chris's father, and Chris Watts are still in the room. And Chris goes on to tell the police what he told his dad, that it was Shanann that had smothered the kids, and that he freaked out and done the same thing to her. That basically everything was Shanann's fault, and he only done it because he saw her hurting the kids. Now, surely if that's true, you wouldn't just dispose of their bodies. You'd ring police and tell them what your partner had done. You wouldn't just try to hide it, because that'd make you look guilty. Police went on then to ask Chris where did he dispose of their bodies, and he said, quote, "They're at the first location that I went that day." All the while he's trying to act concerned and like with his, you know, his head in his hands, and he's trying to like, sounds like he's trying to make himself cry, which is just pathetic. But anyway, he then said to his dad when the police left that the problem was that he thought that they didn't believe him. So he's still more concerned about himself. Me personally, I think he knew himself that they didn't believe him, and that's why he was trying so hard to make himself look sad. He was trying so hard to portray that he was this concerned husband and this concerned father, which it just wasn't coming across, because it seemed like everything was rehearsed. To me anyway, that's just my opinion. Me watching the Netflix documentary, it just seemed like he had rehearsed it in the mirror before he walked into the police station that day. So Chris's dad asked him, were Shanann and the two girls buried? And Chris admitted to his dad that Shanann was buried, but he had put the two girls into two separate oil tanks. So that's when the polygraph lady and the policeman come back in. So the polygraph lady actually ends up turning around and saying to Chris, quote, "So you're good with the public knowing that Shanann killed her daughters?" And then Chris replied, "Yes, because I did not hurt these girls." So they weren't buying his story at all. Like, too many things didn't add up. You know, he failed the polygraph test, they knew he was lying, and just the story that he was telling about Shanann hurting the girls just did not make sense whatsoever. So police didn't believe him at all, because just things didn't add up, that what he was saying, like, it didn't make any sense why Shanann had hurt her kids. Anything that he was saying just didn't make sense. So police called him out on it and basically said that they think what had happened was that he had murdered both Bella and Celeste Watts before Shanann had returned home from her Arizona work trip that morning, the 13th of August. And then when Shanann got home, that Chris done the same thing to her. And I think this because he admitted to having an affair, and he had this whole new life with Nicole, and they just thought maybe he's just trying to get rid of his old life. So they said to him, what we think happened was that you got too used to your new life and you just wanted to get rid of your old life, which is so sad that anyone would ever think of doing that. Like, what in your brain makes you want to do something so horrendous? Like, you don't have to murder your partner if you're not happy with them. If you're wanting to not be with them anymore, just get a divorce. You don't have to kill. Like, this man didn't deserve the beautiful family he had. He didn't deserve anything that he had, because at the end of the day, he's just a monster that done absolutely horrendous things to his family. That, how could you, like, there's just no words. And what makes this even more sad is that Shanann worshipped the ground that Chris walked on. Like, on the 10th of August, before she left for her business work trip to Arizona, she left him a letter saying how much she loved him and that she'd always be there for him, and she'd never let anything, like, she'd never give up on their marriage or their kids. She just wanted to work things out, and she even said to him that she would be civil with his mother for the sake of him, just to make him happy. Like, she adored him and her two kids, and it's absolutely heartbreaking that he could do something like that. So on the 15th of August 2018, 3 days after Shanann, Bella and Celeste went missing, Chris actually confessed to the murders of Shanann, Bella, Celeste and their unborn child Nico Watts. So on the morning of August 13th, Chris went on to say that when Shanann returned home, that him and Shanann were both intimate together, and then sometime later is when he admitted to Shanann that he no longer loved her. And it sort of escalated from there. An argument broke out, and that's when Chris sadly admits to strangling Shanann Watts to death. So Chris said when Shanann was face down on the bed that Bella, their eldest daughter, walked in and saw, I can't imagine that sight, but saw Shanann face down on the bed. And that's when Chris said that Bella apparently asked, quote, "What's wrong with mommy?" So Chris then went on to say that he actually put Shanann in a white sheet, and that's when he put her in the back of his truck and put the two girls in the truck also with Shanann's body. Like, those poor little girls, poor Shanann. He then said that he drove about 45 minutes out to the site that he worked on, Sarvi 319, and that's when he ended up sadly murdering both Bella Watts, age 4, and Celeste Watts, age 3. He said that Cece was first. He said that he put a blanket over her head and he smothered her to death, and Bella also saw, she saw him murdering her little sister and saw him murdering her mother. He said that Bella asked him, what happened to Cece? And that's when he went on to also strangle Bella Watts to death too. And he went on to say that he buried Shanann in a shallow grave and then put both Bella and Celeste in an oil tank each. So there was these 2 oil tanks side by side that were also on the site, and he said that they were about 20 foot deep, and he put Bella in one and Celeste in the other, and then he got back into his car and drove away. So on the way back, he actually said that he rang up Bella and Celeste's school and unenrolled them from going to school. He also said that he started to look into selling the family home, so he rang up a realtor. He didn't waste any time. He just wanted out. He wanted out of his family. All he wanted was to move on with Nicole. So he thought the way of doing that was to kill his family. So August 16th, 2018, 4 days after the brutal murders of Shanann Watts, Bella Watts, Celeste Watts and their unborn child Nico Watts, Shanann's body was actually found in a shallow grave, and recovery efforts were put in place to find both girls. So Chris actually admitted to police that when Bella, Celeste and Shanann actually went out to North Carolina to visit Shanann's family, that he was actually with Nicole the whole time. So Nicole Atkins went on to tell police that actually the Saturday night that Shanann and herself were out in Arizona for the work business trip, that Shanann actually found a bill on their joint account, so her and Chris's joint account, for $63 for a bar called the Lazy Dog in Westminster. Now, Chris had told Shanann that he was actually going to a Rockies game that night. He also told Shanann that he was going to get a babysitter to watch the girls while he went to the Rockies game. But he never went to a Rockies game. He was with Nicole the whole time. I'm sure when Shanann found that bill, her gut instinct was like, he's having an affair. I don't want to assume anything, but I'd say, because she was already having doubts, she had asked him a few times, was there somebody else? And every time he just said no. But he admitted to not even wanting to try hide it anymore with Nicole. That he was just, he didn't really care anymore. And that he had thought that when Shanann came back from her work trip that she was going to confront him, and that's why he felt like he needed to kill her. So Nicole Kissinger said that Chris actually came back to her place that night, the Saturday night, and stayed till about 10:30 and then had to go home to let the babysitter go. So Nicole was actually interviewed by police, and she was asked would she have ever dropped any sort of hints that, Shanann, Bella or Celeste was ever a problem. And she said no, she never ever said that. She had no part in it, and she was just as shocked as everybody else was. To make it even worse, people were actually blaming Shanann on what happened. Still, they were saying that she drove him mad, that she was a narcissist, she was every name under the sun, that it was her fault that Chris retaliated like this, that she drove him to do this, basically. I don't know why an innocent woman would be getting blamed for something that an absolute monster did just because he found a new life and he didn't want his old life anymore. Celeste, Bella and Shanann paid with their lives because of his selfishness. So 3 months after the murders, Chris actually ends up pleading guilty to all 9 counts against him. By doing this, he avoided the death penalty. So some of the counts against Chris Watts included murder in the first degree in regards to Shanann Watts, murder in the first degree in regards to Celeste Watts, a murder in the first degree in regards to Bella Watts, and also an unlawful termination of a pregnancy in regards to Nico Watts, and 3 counts of unlawful tampering with a deceased human body. His mother actually read out in court that they forgave Chris, and Shanann's mother also done such an emotional reading. I'm not going to read it out because that's their thing that they done, and I just don't want to be disrespectful in that kind of way. So if it's all on the Netflix documentary, if you're wanting to watch it yourself and see what I mean. So while in prison, Chris has actually wrote some letters to a reporter called Sherilyn Cadle. He went on to say that it was actually premeditated, that he was thinking of killing his family for weeks, which is just absolutely, there's no words like for a human being like him. He then said that he actually murdered Bella and Celeste Watts before Shanann got back. He smothered them with their pillow, and he said that when Shanann came home that he got into bed with Shanann, and then both girls woke up. He said he doesn't know how they woke up, but both girls woke up and came into the room. So he went on to say when the girls came into their room, now I just want to put this out there that this bit is quite graphic, so I just want you to be mindful of that. He went on to say that the girls' eyes were bruised and they looked traumatized from where he smothered them. He also said to the reporter that he tried to bring on a miscarriage to Shanann Watts by giving her a painkiller called oxycodone. He went on then to say that he thought it'd be easier to be with Nicole if Shanann wasn't pregnant. I'm really sorry if I can't talk very well at the minute. My mouth is sort of stuck with adhesive, but I'll do my best to keep talking. He also went on to say that on the 12th of August, he knew that that was the last time he was going to tuck his baby girls into bed. He knew that he was going to kill them the next day. He knew what he wanted to do, and he, as I said, he had it premeditated for weeks. He'd been thinking about this. He wanted rid of his old life to start his new life with his mistress, Nicole. He said when they got into bed that I think there was like a little argument, and he told Shanann that he didn't love her, and then he ended up strangling Shanann, and he said that she couldn't fight back, and like it's so disturbing, this part as well. I just don't know what was going through this man's head. So I'm just going to quote what he said in the letter to the reporter. So he said, quote, "Isn't it weird how I look back and what I remember so much is her face getting all black with streaks of mascara." He also said in the letter that he knew he had to kill Shanann because she was going to keep him away from Nikki. So Christopher Lee Watts, now 35 years of age, is incarcerated in Wisconsin prison, where he's serving 5 consecutive life sentences for the murder of his family. So that today, guys, concludes the Watts family case. So this case was just so heartbreaking to research, and that documentary, watching their home movies and just getting an insight into their family just really tugs at your heartstrings. To think that he could do that to his family is just, there's absolutely no words for him. As I said, he's an absolute monster, and he is exactly where he deserves to be. So I just want to say rest in peace to Bella Watts, Celeste Watts, Shanann Watts and Nico Watts. My heart really goes out to both sides of the family, the Rushcheck family and the Watts family. It can't be easy for Chris's mum and dad to know that your son has committed such horrible crimes. So that's something that both sides of the family are going to have to live with for the rest of their lives. So I think I'm going to leave it there for today, guys. So if you liked the video, guys, please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and just look after yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye for now, guys.